Namaste. My name is David Courtney, and today we're going to be discussing tuning and stringing the sarangi. Now, one of the first things to remember about tuning the sarangi is that there is no one way to tune it. As many different people as there are and as many different sarangis there are, that's how many different ways of tuning you can find. So what's important is not to know any one way to string or tune the instrument, but to understand the basic principles involved. And that's what we'll discuss today, the very basic principles involved. First of all, when it comes to tuning, we have to have a few basic tools. The most important tool to have is a tuning wrench. They come in a variety of sizes and materials, but it is extremely important that your tuning wrench fits your instrument very well. If it's not very tight, if there's a lot of hysteresis, a lot of play, things can be very difficult. But if you're like most people and your tuning wrench you do get isn't the best you want, if you notice, I've taken the sleeve off, I have padded it with cloth in various places where I felt it didn't fit well, and then I have put the sleeve back on. So again, you can take your wrench and you can work on it to improve it to make it fit the pegs of your sarangi much better. So a wrench is very important. Another tool that I find extremely important is a little pick, which helps to get in there and to strike the individual strings. This is really nothing in the world but a skewer, as in used for cooking purposes. You will need rosin. I find a very soft, sticky rosin used for basses to be very well. I find that the rosin that one uses for violins is oftentimes too hard and not very good. You'll also need chalk. Now let's discuss some of the basic issues of tuning the sarangi. Now, one of the first things to remember is what key you want to tune the instrument to. One of the strengths of the sarangi, which makes it such a very good accompanying instrument, is the extremely broad range of tunings at which the instrument can be tuned to. As a general rule, most sarangis are designed to work from the key of E. But remember, since sarangi is more often than not an accompanying instrument, if you do not accompany anyone from E, then there's no point in tuning the instrument to it. For myself, I found the most convenient tuning is an A sharp. For no other reason than most of the people that I need to accompany will sing from A sharp. So the first thing to do, as I said, to decide what you want to tune it to. If you only want to use your sarangi for solo purposes, you might find that E will give it the nicest sound. But as I said, if you're going to use it as an accompanying instrument, you will definitely want to tune it to whoever or whatever you're most likely going to accompany. As I said, in my case, it's A sharp. Now, when we say we tune the instrument and string the instrument to A sharp, what does that mean? Well, remember that the Indian scale, sa re ga ma pa da ni sa. It's basically do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. So with that in mind, that means that our sa, in this case, is going to be A sharp. So this string here, I'm tuning to A sharp. I go down a fourth. This string here will be for pa. Go down again another fifth to low sa. So this is sa, pa, sa. That's probably the way you will want to tune it. That means that you'll be able to get easily 2.5 octaves. Sa, re, ga, ma, pa, open, da, ni, open, sa, and then re, ga, ma, pa, da, ni, sa. And then you can come up another a half an octave, sa, re, ga, ma, pa, which will bring you up to about here. You probably don't want to go more than pa, which, although in theory you can go up another octave, remember, if you go up any higher, you're starting to get talcum powder on this section of the string here, which is, you really want to keep clean, you want to keep clear, because this is where you're going to be doing your bowing. If you get any dirt or grime or powder or whatever's on your fingers, if you get it on this part of the string, it's going to adversely affect your bowing. So you may not want to go higher than a pa. So that means that this instrument here will cover about 2.5 octaves. As I said, set this to sa, set this to pa, set this to sa. Now naturally, what gauge of string you use here is going to depend upon what your key is. I have chosen mine for an A sharp. If you want to come higher or lower, then again your strings will get thicker or thinner accordingly. Now that leaves us with several other sets of strings that we have to know the function of. Do you see these sympathetic strings right here that run right under here? We have this bank of sympathetic strings. And more often than not, most people will tune this particular bank chromatically. So it will sound like, let me get under here, chromatic tuning. Essentially what these strings do is they act as like an acoustic reverb, but again it's a reverb that doesn't require a knob or switches or anything. So as I said, very commonly these will be set chromatically. Interestingly enough, a lot of sarangi players refer to the chromatic scale as achal tat. Tat means a scale or a mode, and achal means one which is immovable. So the beauty of tuning it chromatically, especially if you're using a tempered chromatic scale, is that as the sarangi goes up and down according to who you're accompanying, you don't have to change the tuning. In my particular case, I have taken this particular string here, this particular peg, I've set this to sa. Re, ga, ma, pa, da, ni, sa, and then again come back up to re for this one. Naturally the ones in between are the altered forms of it. You may find that with your strings and your pitch you may decide on something a little different, but this is what I found works for me here. Now we have another group of strings right here. Oh, let me also mention, I have used steel for all of these strings, which is the most normal, traditional thing to do. Now I've done something a little bit untraditional with this bank of strings here. This bank of strings here would normally be set to the scale of whatever the rag we're using. But again, because I'm using this primarily for accompaniment, the logistics involved in having to retune this for every song is just too much. So I have again gone and tuned this one chromatically. But I've done something interesting here. I have replaced the steel strings with brass and bronze strings, which reaches it down. So whereas this one I have covering the chromatic scale